Coming up next on the Jeff Crilley Show, you're going to meet the great Daniel Carter. He's the Chief Legal and People Officer for RailPros. They are the premier consultant for the railroad industry. You'll hear his incredible journey just ahead.
Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is the Jeff Crilley Show.
Well, I can't think of too many industries that are older than the railroad industry in America. I had to look this up on Wikipedia. The railroad industry goes back to the 1820s. Can you imagine that? And so a lot of stuff has changed, including AI and all the different solutions that have come along. But the railroad industry is pretty much the same as it's been for, 200 years. It's taking things and people from point A to point B. Daniel Carter's in the studio right now. He's the Chief Legal and People Officer for RailPros. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
All right, tell me about RailPros, because you came along in 2000, and tell me what the company does.
So RailPros started in 2000 originally as a rail engineering firm, so engineering design, some signal preemption, those kind of things, some ancillary services. It very quickly expanded on the basis of the assessed needs of the railroad, primarily the Class 1. So we started with penetrating the Class 1s and expanded very quickly. So what we like to say at RailPros is, and it's very true, we create our own market. So we know what services the railroad requires, and we know what specialization the unionized labor force for the railroads has and has always had, which is the maintenance of way workers. They're not specialized in RWIC flagging services. They're not specialized in utility observation, construction management, real estate permitting, all of the services that RailPros provides today, which we didn't provide initially. But we were able to go to the Class 1s just as a starting point and said, hey, here's some of the things that we specialize in that we're really, really good at. And we know that right now, this is one of your verticals, but there's a tremendous amount of risk. Your total case incident rate is very high. You're having a significant amount of OSHA recordable injuries. We can do it better, and we're not going to bill you a penny. We're going to bill your contractor. So we're going to be basically subcontracted because the prime's going to have primary project responsibility, and then we're going to come in with all of our ancillary services. We're going to bill them direct. So the benefit to the railroad has been tremendous, and as a result, we've expanded, and we now have real estate permitting and flagging and utility observation, construction management. We still maintain all of our engineering design, CM, PM, and that's expanded as well. So it's been a great 25-year run.
And you guys are growing by leaps and bounds. Tell us about the last few years.
Yeah, leaps and bounds. Our compound annual growth rate is 27%, which is perhaps not unprecedented, but highly unconventional. So we're in a unique space. We're ultimately recession-proof also. So in 2020, we sold to our second private equity firm right in the middle of the pandemic when everything was ultimately a question mark. And my CEO, he likes to tell the story, Ken Koff, said he did it over Zoom. It was just a few virtual calls, and that's how they sold the business, right? Had to be accommodating at the time. But the organic growth has been incredible, and it's been sustained and increasing year over year. In fact, this past year, we grew by 29%, which listen, when you're a smaller organization, just doing a few million at the top line, when you grow 27%, it's not really quite as impressive, right? Because it's all on a relative scale. When you're doing hundreds and hundreds of millions at the top line and you're still able to grow organically at a rate of between 25 and 30%, I mean, it's basically unprecedented, especially in our environment because we're private equity backed. So we're also on an inorganic hunt. We haven't been highly acquisitive in the past because we haven't needed to. So we keep bringing on these amazing people with their phenomenal skills and talents. We keep increasing our service offerings to the Class 1s, transit agencies, short lines. But now we're on an acquisition hunt. So there's been a few acquisitions recently, and we're becoming much more acquisitive because we want to tack on some of that inorganic as well.
Well, you came on my radar screen because we host the Dallas Business Journal TV show, and you were interviewed by Ali a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
You won a major award. Let's go ahead and put this on the screen. It's the 2025 HR Impact Award. Tell us about that award.
Yeah, so this was really, this was done in a sort of surreptitious way by my team. I don't, as much as it may not appear so, I don't love the spotlight. My favorite thing is to highlight my team. So even when asked at this event, and I'll get to this award, but even when asked at this event, the question for all the HR leaders who won the Impact Award was, what is one small thing that you do that's made a significant impact on your organization? And I never struggled with questions until I heard that one, and I thought, well, it's not really about me. It's not about me at all. It's about my team. And all I really have to do is trust their talent, right? Trust their ingenuity, trust their creativity, trust their integrity. And then it dawned on me, what's the one small thing I do? I trust the team. And it's great. And as a result of that level of trust, and we need to define trust, and maybe we can get into that. But as a result of that level of trust, this team, correspondingly loves me as well, and nominated me for this on the basis of all of the, I'll say, emotional and cultural changes that I've brought to the organization. It's really less about the material sort of, initiatives.
Yes.
I brought in a new HRIS and added surveys and did these things, right? It's more about the level of passion and emotion and consistency that a leader brings to an organization. That's most impactful.
Well, I went back this morning as I was preparing for the show and watched your interview with Ali, and you said something that rings true, is that a lot of people will compare their team to a family. And you said words to the effect of, you got to be careful saying the word family, because family means different things to different people. But in your case, it is your family.
It very much feels that way. And the environment was already there. And that's what was most attractive about RailPros to me. So I see myself as a catalyst or an amplifier or a supplement. But it spoke to me and it resonated with me. And now I have really no problem calling it the RailPros family. I used to really steer away from those. Again, and it was what I said when I interviewed with Ali, if a business circumstance changes unexpectedly and you have to let somebody go or furlough them or reduce time or squeeze them, right, in any way, you don't both want them to feel slighted by a business and betrayed by a family member. It's double punishment. So you're actually setting them up in sort of an unrighteous way, right? But that's only if you don't have a great company culture that you can rely on, and we do. So everybody understands in that environment when we say family, what it actually means, right? We're not your family, but you are in an environment where you're loved, you're supported, you're seen, your voice is heard, you matter. And that's what's most important. And I think that's what's most attractive about RailPros, quite frankly.
It's so powerful. We're going to show some pictures from your Facebook. I want you to narrate this for us. So when this first picture comes up, I want you to tell me what
our interns. Yeah, so this is, we love celebrating our interns. We developed a formalized program a few years ago. And we've really been able to attract and funnel in some phenomenal talent, some phenomenal personalities. We actually did a really strong video campaign this year for the very first time, and we were able to interview each individual one of these interns to ask them about their experience at RailPros and ask them about the applicability of what they've learned in school relative to what they were doing at RailPros and vice versa, right? Nice. So how those skills are transferable. The aim being, obviously, that we're able to retain them. So I think we're at approximately 90% in terms of the amount of internships versus full formal job offers.
Yes.
So we've had a really good run. But
all right, let's go to the next picture.
This is a few of my phenomenal teammates here. So we have a few of my direct reports. I have my corporate paralegal. I have my director of corporate communications and public relations, and I have my director of HR. And then a few other members of the organization who just love coming along and having a good time. So we have our vice president of corporate development, our CFO, we sort of a whole series of people who knew that this was going to be a fun event.
And one more picture. Let's go ahead and put that up.
Yeah, these are our interns again. And the one closest to us over here on the right with the watch and glasses, her name is Mindy White. Great engineer, but an even better people leader. So she's kind of led the charge on the mentorship program for the engineering department specifically. So these are all the interns, just a different view. And there's his name is Marco Loredo, and he's our chief operating officer. You see him with the bald head poking in the middle there. Yes. So there's a lot of interaction between senior level executives and
Daniel. It seems like you got the best job ever.
I love it.
You get to work around people and lift them up. And so tell me more about what gets you out of bed in the morning and what your why is.
Exactly what you just said. I really do. I go to work every day and I look for opportunities to elevate people. I mean, you said it really well. I believe that the responsibilities that leaders should shoulder is far more significant than I think most give credit to. And I take that responsibility very, very seriously. And I know that as a leader, it's not about me. So as you progress through an organization, it really becomes less about you. So you become less valuable in terms of the labor that you can perform, right? And the talent that you ultimately bring apart from being a great leader. That becomes the primary thing that drives value in the organization for which you are adequately compensated. So everything that I do, and that's where, and we talked about defining trust, I mentioned that earlier. If you ask a Navy SEAL, define trust, the Navy SEAL says, do I trust you with my wife, my life, and my money? And in the context of what Navy SEALs do, well, that makes a lot of sense. But in the context of what we do, what does trust mean? Trust means, do you trust that I have your best interests at heart? And my entire team and everybody who works with me, even in an ancillary capacity, knows that about me. They know that I have their best interests at heart. And as a result, they always do their best work for me. I always like to say, every team member, every employee is a representative of a business, but they work for their leaders. They don't work for the business. It's sort of arbitrary. The concept is arbitrary. You work for your leaders. So what kind of a leader do you have? What kind of a leader do you want to be? And I know in the past, I have a great leader now in Ken Koff. In the past, I've had terrible leaders. And I never used them as a counterexample because I didn't want to create any cynicism within myself. But I always thought, the only thing I'm going to do is be the leader that I wish I had. And in many ways and in many respects, I led them. It was sort of a managing up. I'm going to be the example of how I know this should look. And this is going to be something that you're going to see consistently. Right. And you have the choice whether to reject it or accept it and adapt and adopt maybe some of these characteristics. And I was actually really successful in certain capacities, really successful in being that example and seeing that change in my leaders.
Amen. Amen. Well, you inspire me. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
And
I really enjoyed it.
Sharing your heart and your wisdom. We're going to end with the website, which is railpros.com. The great Daniel Carter. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks again.
You bet. That's it for now. We'll see you next time.